Good afternoon, class. So the last time we met, we were discussing types of poetry. I need someone to remind us where we stopped with types of poetry. Ballad. So we move on to the sonnets. The sonnet can be defined as a 14-line poem written in iambic pentameter. The sonnet can be defined as a 14-line poem written in iambic pentameter. So the major features of the sonnet that define it are: 1. It is written in 14 lines. It has 14 lines. 2. It is written in iambic pentameter. You cannot just define the sonnet as a poem of 14 lines and stop there. You need to add that it is written in iambic pentameter. The sonnet is a lyrical poem. The sonnet is a lyrical poem. Meaning that it expresses intense emotion. The sonnet is a lyrical poem, which means that it expresses intense emotion. Now, in this case, the emotion that the sonnet expresses is that of love. So that is why the sonnet is also called a love song. The sonnet is also called a love song. So that means that the major subject matter of the sonnet is love. The major subject matter of the sonnet is love. The sonnet treats other themes, of course, but the major theme of the sonnet is love. In the course of talking about love, other related themes could be discussed. In the course of talking about love, other related themes could be discussed. Alright? To be discussed. But the main concern of the sonnet is love, which is why the sonnet is a love song. It's a lyrical poem because it talks about the emotion of love. Now, mostly the love theme in the sonnets usually revolves around the love between a man and a woman. The love theme in the sonnet usually revolves around human love, the love between a man and a woman, and you must understand that human love is frail. Human love is frail. So the love expressed in the sonnet, the love discussed in the sonnet, is usually seen to be problematic. Usually seen to be problematic. The love discussed in the sonnet is usually seen to be what? Problematic. Because it is unrequited. Usually seen to be problematic because it is unrequited. It is unrequited. So the sonnet usually talks about unrequited love as its theme. Usually talk about unrequited love as its theme. Unrequited love is love that is not reciprocated, love that is not returned. Unrequited love is one that is not returned, it's not reciprocated. It's a scene where you love someone, but the person does not love you back. So the persona of the sonnet loves a lady, but the lady refuses to love him back. Which is the occasion for the poetry, is the occasion for the poem. Because in the poem, the persona, in most of the cases, is seen bemoaning his state, his fate of loving someone who will not love him back. So sometimes the persona is seen decrying or bemoaning his situation, telling us how he feels, how he feels to be rejected, how it feels to be rejected by the one he loves, trying to bear his feelings to us. So then you could see that one of the themes of the sonnet is rejection in love. Rejection in love. Apart from trying to tell us what it feels like to love someone and not to be loved back, sometimes the persona is also seen trying to persuade the lady. The persona is also seen trying to persuade the lady to love him. So in that case, you also have the theme of persuasion to fall in love, trying to persuade someone to fall in love. In the course of persuading the lady, the persona usually draws attention. The persona usually draws attention to the lady's coyness. The lady's coyness or shyness. Which might be the reason for her refusal to fall in love. Persona could draw attention to the lady's coyness or shyness, which might be the reason for her refusal to fall in love. Apart from this, the persona could also draw attention to the lady, or the persona could draw the lady's attention to the passage of time, telling her that time is passing by, and that as time passes by, she's getting older and older, and if she does not fall in love early enough, she might remain unmarried if she grows old, because for the lady, there's a time to be young, which is the time to be married, after which the lady will be unmarriageable. That is within the context of the sonnets. So the lady has to be warned that time is passing by and she should not delay. So in that, we have the theme of Carpe Diem. In the sonnet, we have the theme of Carpe Diem. In the sonnet. The sonnet can raise the theme of Carpe Diem. Carpe Diem is Latin for seize the moment or seize the day. Carpe Diem is Latin for seize the day or seize the moment. Here is an opportunity that has presented itself to you. Don't let it pass you by. Another related theme usually raised in the sonnet is love as a timeless and universal phenomenon. Love as a timeless and universal phenomenon. Another related theme usually raised in the sonnet is love as what? Timeless and universal phenomenon. Love as timeless and universal phenomenon. Love is timeless and universal. And this is raised when talking about true love, right? This is raised, the timelessness and universality of love as a theme in the sonnet, usually raised when talking about true love, or how true love can be, which makes it different from fake love that probably exists in our time today. So love is said to be timeless because, of course, love itself is a timeless theme in literature. It's timeless because it's not limited to time. It means that it has been there, it is there, and will always be there. That's why it is timeless. It is universal because it is found everywhere, whether in the east or in the north, or south, or west. Wherever you go, you encounter love because love is a universal phenomenon. Love is also timeless because it cannot be changed by the vagaries of existence. Love is also timeless because it cannot be altered, cannot be changed by the vagaries of existence. By the vagaries of existence. That means no condition, no situation, no circumstances can dim the light of true love. That's what usually raised in the sonnet. True love will remain constant, no matter the condition, no matter the situation, no matter the circumstance. Other themes usually raised in the sonnets include procreation, the theme of procreation. That theme usually raised in the sonnets is the theme of procreation. Right? The lady is urged to have a child. The lady is urged to have a child now that she's young. So you cannot have a child without getting married and without falling in love. Okay? So the lady is asked to have a child now that she's young, lest she grows old and does not have someone to represent her at old age. So the theme of procreation, we have the theme of the passage of time, we have the theme of mortality, either that death is always staring us in the face as time passes by. So these and others are the themes that are usually raised in the sonnet, but remember that the major theme of the sonnet, or the major subject matter of the sonnet is what? It's love. We have two types of sonnets, two major types of sonnets. We have two types of sonnets, or two major types of sonnets. We have the Italian sonnet. We have the Italian sonnet. We have the Italian sonnet. And we have the English sonnet. Let's look at the Italian sonnet. If you do not call it Italian sonnet, you can also call it the Petrarchan sonnet. The Petrarchan sonnet. You do not call it Italian sonnet, you can call it the Petrarchan sonnet. Petrarchan sonnet. Meaning that it is named after its Italian promoter, Francesco Petrarch. Francesco Petrarch. This was the first type of sonnet. It was the first type of sonnet. Was practiced in Italy during the Renaissance. Was practiced in Italy. The Renaissance. Italian sonnets, or the Petrarchan sonnet, was popular in Italy during the Renaissance. It has some distinctive features that set it apart from the English sonnet. There are some distinctive features that set it apart from the English sonnet. Of course, it has 14 lines. I said that it has some distinctive features that sets it apart from the English sonnet. And that to begin with, it has 14 lines written in iambic pentameter. Okay? But structurally, the Italian sonnet is made up of two parts, the first 8 lines and the last 6 lines. Structurally, the Italian sonnet is made up of two parts, the first 8 lines and the last 6 lines. The first 8 lines and the last 6 lines. The first 8 lines and the last 6 lines. The first 8 lines is called octave. First 8 lines are called octave. The last 6 lines is called sestet. So when you add together, you have 14. The rhyme scheme is unique. The rhyme scheme is unique, and it is the rhyme scheme that allows us to see the structural demarcation of the poem. It is the rhyme scheme that allows us to see the structural demarcation of the poem. So the rhyme scheme of the Italian sonnet is ABBA, ABBA, CDE, CDE. ABBA, ABBA, CDC, CDE, CDE. All right? This is the octave. Now, so the octave, the rhyme for the octave is constant, but the rhyme for the sestet varies. This is constant. This varies, so that it's not always CDE, CDE that you have. Sometimes you can have CDC, CDC, or any other variant. The rhyme for the octave is constant. It is ABBA, ABBA. But the rhyme for the sestet varies. So you may not always have CDE, CDE, or CDC, CDC. It can be any other variant. So the subject matter of the poem is raised in the octave. The subject matter of the poem is raised in the octave. The subject matter of the poem is raised in the octave. The conflict is raised in the octave, in the first 8 lines. And then it is resolved in the sestet. The subject matter of the poem is raised and discussed in the octave, as the first 8 lines, and then it is resolved or concluded in the sestet. Let's just look at the English sonnet. There's a marked difference between the Italian sonnet and the English sonnet. There's a marked difference between the Italian sonnet and the English sonnet. The English sonnet, it should be noted, was borrowed from the Italian sonnet with some modification. The English sonnet was borrowed from the Italian sonnet with some modification. During the Renaissance, in the 16th century, during the Renaissance in the 16th century, during the Renaissance, the 16th century, English scholars and courtiers traveled to Rome, went to Italy, where they saw the sonnet form and brought it back to England. They traveled to Italy, went to Rome. They went to Rome, right? Where they saw the sonnet form and brought it back to England. Of course, the sonnet form has been practiced even in the Middle Ages, but it was in the Renaissance that English writers went to Rome, because you must understand that in the Renaissance, travel was seen as a form of education, and of course it still is. But to travel in the Renaissance was to be educated, because you will learn about other cultures, right? And so when the English courtiers traveled to Rome, they met the sonnet form and brought it back to England. One of such writers was Thomas Watt. And Henry Howard. You know him as the Earl of Surrey. Earl of Surrey. Thomas Watts and Henry Howard, the Earl of Surrey. Earl of Surrey. Earl of Surrey. All right? The Earl of Surrey. So this and other writers brought the sonnet form from Rome, but along the line there were modifications. At the point they wrote just like the Romans did, the Italians did. It had the same form, but after some time there were modifications, so that today we have the structure and form of the English sonnet different from that of the Italian sonnet. And this new form was popularized by William Shakespeare. This new form was popularized by William Shakespeare, which explains why another name for the English sonnet is what? Shakespearean sonnet. That explains why another name for the English sonnet is Shakespearean sonnet. We also call it Elizabethan sonnet because it was popularized during the time of Queen Elizabeth. We also call it Elizabethan sonnet because it was popularized in the time of Queen Elizabeth. Queen Elizabeth I in England. So sometimes you hear the English sonnets, but some other time you might hear Elizabethan sonnets, and some other times you might hear Shakespearean sonnets. So you don't have to be confused, right? So the structure of the English sonnet, is such that it is made up of 3 quatrains, followed by a couplet. 3 quatrains, followed by a couplet. 3 quatrains, followed by a couplet. What is a quatrain? What is a quatrain? What is a quatrain? A form of 4 lines, or a stanza of 4 lines. What's a couplet? A poem or stanza of 2 lines. That's how you say it. Not 4 lines, 2 lines. A poem of 4 lines, a stanza of 4 lines. It's a quatrain. A couplet is a poem of 2 lines or a stanza of 2 lines. Right? So 3 quatrains will give you how many lines? 12 lines, and then the couplet will complete the 14 lines. Good. So the English sonnet has its own rhyme scheme. The English sonnet has its own rhyme scheme. The English sonnet has its own rhyme scheme. The English sonnet has its own rhyme scheme, which is A B A B, C D C D, E F E F, G G. A B A B, C D C D, E F E F, G G. That is the rhyme scheme for the English sonnets. A B A B, C D C D, E F E F, G G. Now, the subject matter or the issue, the conflict in the poem, the subject matter, the issue, the conflict in the poem are raised and discussed in the quatrains. The issue is raised and discussed in the quatrains. The theme is raised and discussed in the quatrains. The conflict is raised and discussed in the quatrains. And then are suddenly or abruptly and creatively resolved in the couplet. And are suddenly and abruptly and creatively and imaginatively resolved in the couplets. The conflict is abruptly, suddenly, creatively, imaginatively resolved in the couplets. All right? So most Renaissance writers wrote the sonnet. Most Renaissance writers wrote the sonnet. Most Renaissance writers wrote the sonnet. It was the love song of the time. It was the love song of the time. But one writer surpassed them all. One writer surpassed them all. His name is William Shakespeare. He wrote Total of 154 sonnets. One five four. He wrote a total of 154 sonnets. And each sonnet is numbered from 1 to 154. So I can ask you to discuss sonnet 1, sonnet 2, sonnet 3, and so on and so forth. Huh? Each sonnet is numbered from 1 to 1. Okay, so we'll pause and just take on one or two of Shakespeare's sonnets. The first sonnet we'll take is sonnet 116. Sonnet 116. Sonnet 116. Should be, it's in this collection. The poem goes, "Let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediment. Love is not love which alters when its alteration finds, or bends with the remover to remove. Oh no, it's an ever fixed mark that looks on tempest and is never shaken. It's a star to every wandering bark, whose words unknown though its height be taken. Love's not time's fool, though rosy lips and cheeks within its bending sickles compass come. Love alters not with its brief hours and weeks, but bears it even to the age of doom. If this be error, and upon me proved, and I read, nor no man ever loved." So Sonnet 116 says, "Let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediment. Love is not love which alters when its alteration finds, or bends with the remover to remove. Oh no, it is an ever fixed mark that looks on tempest and is never shaken. The star to every wandering bark, whose words unknown though its height be taken. Love's not time's fool, though rosy lips and cheeks within its bending sickles compass come. Love alters not with brief hours and weeks, but bears it out even to the age of doom. If this be error and upon me proved, and I read, nor no man ever loved." So the poem subject matter is love, just like most sonnets. We've said that the subject matter of the sonnet is love. So this poem talks about love. Okay? And specifically, the poem talks about the timelessness of love. In this poem, love is depicted as timeless phenomenon, which cannot be discouraged by anything, any tragedies in life. In this case, the poem is talking about true love, okay, which time itself cannot change. So true love is that which remains unchanged through time. No difficulties, no storm of life can thwart it. Okay? Yes, so if you look at the rhyme scheme, the structure, and everything, you'll see that it mirrors the structure of the English sonnet. You can see the last two lines, how creative and abrupt it is. So it has all the features that we talked about when referring to the English sonnet. For instance, the meter is seen in the regularity of the syllables per line in the poem. Since it is pentameter, this is the iambic pentameter, each line of the poem will have 10 syllables. And the stressed and unstressed distribution will be one unstressed syllable followed by a stressed syllable throughout the lines. Now, I have checked the collection. I've not seen sonnet 3. So we can move on to the next type of poetry. So much for the sonnet. Let's look at the limerick. So the limerick is a short poem. It's a short poem. It is funny. It is funny. It is obscene. It is bawdy. It is funny, obscene, bawdy, short. These are the characteristics of the sonnet, of the limerick. Those are the characteristics of the limerick. It has 5 lines. The limerick has 5 lines. It's a 5-line poem. Limerick is a 5-line poem. It is usually written in anapestic meter. It's usually written in anapestic meter. Anapestic. Anapestic is 2 unstressed syllables followed by a stressed syllable. And it has a rhyme scheme. The limerick has a rhyme scheme. The limerick has a rhyme scheme. And the rhyme scheme is A, A, B, B, A. The rhyme scheme of the limerick is A, A, B, B, A. The limerick is funny in tone because it treats a ridiculous subject matter. The limerick is funny in tone because it treats a ridiculous subject matter. It treats a ridiculous subject matter. And this ridiculous subject matter is usually obscene and body in nature. Usually obscene and body in nature. Usually obscene and body in nature. So the tone of the limerick is really light. The tone of the limerick is really light. The limerick has a light tone. So there's an example of a limerick which is about a limerick. Example of a limerick that's about a limerick. This limerick is about a limerick. The limerick that we want to treat now is about a limerick. That's the art is talking about itself. The poem is a limerick and it's trying to define a limerick. And the name of the poet, the writer is Maurice Bishop. Maurice Bishop. The poem is entitled Limerick. First line, the limerick is furtive and mean. Always take note of the punctuation at the end of each line. Second line, you must keep her in close quarantine. You must keep her in close quarantine. It's a comma. You must keep her in close quarantine. Or she sneaks to the slums. Or she sneaks to the slums. No punctuation now then. And promptly becomes. And promptly becomes. Last line, disorderly, drunk, and obscene. Disorderly, drunk, and obscene. So you can see that this is a limerick. It has 5 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's look at the rhyme scheme. Mean, quarantine, slums, becomes, obscene. A, B, B, A. The rhyme scheme. So that's a limerick about a limerick. Let's take another limerick, an example of a limerick before we move on. First line. There was a young lady of Lynn. There was a young lady of Lynn So first line, there was a young lady of Lynn, comma. Second line, who was so uncommonly thin. Who was so uncommonly thin. That when she essayed, to drink lemonade, she slipped through the straw and fell in. She slipped through the straw and fell in. That means she was really, really thin. There was a young lady of Lynn who was very thin, who was so uncommonly thin that when she essayed to drink lemonade, she slipped through the straw and fell in. She fell into the drink. So uncommonly thin. So you could see there's no way you read that poem without smiling, because limericks are usually funny. Alright? Let's look at ideal. The term ideal is synonymous with pastoral poetry. The term ideal is synonymous with pastoral poetry. Synonymous. With pastoral poetry. So ideal is usually used to describe pastoral poetry. Pastoral poetry is a type of poetry that depicts the natural environment in its idyllic state. That means in its ideal state. In its idyllic state. That means in its ideal state. In its ideal state, in its idyllic state. In its idyllic state. Pastoral poetry depicts the natural environment in its idyllic state. By idyllic, we mean ideal in its best form, as beautiful and the best place to live in, as ideal. Pastoral poetry is one of the oldest forms of poetry. Pastoral poetry is one of the oldest forms of poetry. Pastoral poetry is one of the oldest forms of poetry. And it dates back to the classical period. Pastoral poetry dates back to the classical period. Alright, that's back to the classical period. By classical period, we refer to the time of the Greeks and the Romans. By classical period, we refer to the times of the Greeks and the Romans. By classical period, we refer to the time of the Greeks and the Romans. In pastoral poetry, shepherds known as pastors are depicted. In pastoral poetry, shepherds known as pastors are depicted taking care of the sheep in a natural environment. Shepherds known as pastors. Are depicted taking care of the sheep in a natural environment. This is the major feature of any pastoral poetry. The characters that people the poem actually refer to as shepherds. In pastoral poetry, the characters that people the poem are known as shepherds. You can call them pastors. That's why in church we have pastors and you are the sheep. Okay, sometimes pastors are also called shepherds because you are the sheep. It is sheep, not ships. So the natural environment is depicted as beautiful. The natural environment in pastoral poetry, the natural environment is depicted as a beautiful and an ideal place to stay. That's beautiful and ideal, an ideal human habitat. Apart from taking care of the sheep, the shepherds also engage in other activities. Okay? So remember that the natural environment is ideal. It's put as ideal and beautiful. And by natural environment, we talk about the forests, the hills, the mountains, the rivers, the birds, the sky. Okay? In the pastoral poetry, we do not have cities. We don't have cities. If we talk about cities in pastoral poetry, they are far away. Okay? They are far away. And so because we do not talk about cities, the people living in this environment are humble people. Are humble people. And who are humble people? Who do we call humble people? Generally in life, who do we, when we say somebody is humble or from a humble background, what does it mean? Okay? The poor. People of, lower class people. Right? So, So the world of the pastoral poetry is peopled by humble shepherds, people of low background, whose major concern is raising their sheep in a rustic environment. In a rustic environment. You can call it the countryside. Sometimes you can hear the countryside. Right? I hear the countryside. Okay? You can call it rustic, you can call it the countryside. You can also call it a rural area. Call it what? The rural area. The rural area. Alright? So apart from taking care of that sheep, the shepherd's love life is usually depicted in the pastoral poetry. Love life. A love life is depicted. Love life. A love life is depicted in the pastoral poetry. That can be seen discussing their love life with other shepherds who loves them and who they love, and what has happened in that love. They will discuss it alongside taking care of the sheep. Another feature you are likely to come across in the pastoral poetry is singing competitions. The shepherds do engage in singing competition. That is when they are not taking care of their sheep in that time of relaxation. They can engage in singing competition with other shepherds. And what is the song always about? They sing about their love. They sing about their experiences in the countryside. They sing about their love and other experiences in the countryside. And the winner of the song usually wins a prize. The winner of the song usually wins a prize. The winner of the competition usually wins a prize. The prize is drawn from the natural environment. The prize is drawn from the natural environment. They can stake their goods. It can be a wreath of honor. But remember that the prize is usually drawn from the natural environment. We also have pastoral elegy. Pastoral elegy. Pastoral elegy combines the features of pastoral poetry. Pastoral elegy combines the features of pastoral poetry and elegy. Pastoral elegy combines the features of pastoral poetry and elegy. Pastoral poetry combines the features of pastoral poetry and what? Elegy. And it is deployed, or it is used to mourn the demise of a shepherd. It is used or deployed to mourn the demise of a shepherd. It is used to mourn the death of a shepherd. A good example of pastoral poetry is the passionate shepherd to his love. A good example of pastoral poetry is the passionate shepherd to his love by Christopher Marlowe. By Christopher Marlowe. While a good example of pastoral elegy is Lycidas by John Milton. Pastoral elegy is Lycidas by John Milton. John Milton. Milton. Marlowe. So we can just read The Passionate Shepherd to His Love by Christopher Marlowe. Just reading it so that I can feel the vibes of the poem. Because the poem has its own vibes. So the poem says, "Come live with me and be my love, and we will all the pleasures prove. The valleys, groves, hills and fields, woods or steepy mountain yields. And we will sit upon the rocks, seeing the shepherds feed their flocks. By shallow rivers to whose falls melodious birds sing madrigals. And I will make thee beds of roses and 1,000 fragrant posies, a cup of flowers and a kettle, embroidered all with leaves of myrtle, a gown made of the finest wool, which from our pretty lambs we pull, fair-lined slippers for the cold, with buckles of the purest gold, a belt of straw and ivy buds, with coral claps and amber studs. And if these pleasures may thee move, come live with me and be my love. The shepherd's swain shall dance and sing for thy delight each May morning. If these delights thy mind may move, then live with me and be my love." So what you notice reading the poem, apart from the subject matter of love, is that a shepherd is trying to woo a lady to leave the city and come to live with him in the countryside. All right, promising her all that he could that will make her comfortable. Most of the promises align with the need of the natural environment, the beauty of the natural environment. And the natural environment is depicted as being beautiful. You could see the depiction of valleys, hills. They will sit down and watch other shepherds feeding their flocks. You will make her gift objects that are drawn, whose materials are drawn from the natural environment. So those are the visual imagery in the poem makes it beautiful in the sense that it depicts the ideal state of the natural environment. So we move on to the next type of poetry. which is acrostic poetry. And that will be the last for today. Acrostic poetry. Acrostic poetry. Acrostic poetry. Acrostic poetry is a type of poetry that is based on the letters of a particular word or group of words. That's based on the letters of a particular word or group of words. Acrostic poetry is based on the letters of a particular word or group of words. It is formed by the initial letters of the poem, usually spelled from the beginning to the end. It is formed by the initial letters of the poem, which are used to spell the word or group of words. Which are used to spell the word or group of words when they are taken together. For instance, we have two acrostic poems here. One is based on the word poems. One is based on the word poems, and the other is based on the word poetry. So we take the one that is based on the word poem first. First line. So first line, personal thoughts. Second line, original ideas. Third line, expressive language. The next line, mental images. And then sensory details. So the first letter is, the second letter is, then, and then. So that's poems. Then we take the second one, that is poetry. That's poetry. Are you following us? You're following us. Good. First line for poetry, putting words. Second line, on paper to express in part, thoughts from me, write to your heart. Putting words on paper to express in part, thoughts from me, write to your heart. So you have the first letter, P, second, O, E, C, R, and Y. So poetry. So what you need to do when you're coming for the next class, you have to make an acrostic poetry with your first and last name.